to one and all present here. All right. So a very good evening to one and all present here. I'm Dhruvi Bhagat, and I welcome you all to this wonderful session today. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Rahul Singh, a banker by the day and a writer by the night. He is an expert at connecting the three I's: ideas, insights, and individuals. Hailing from Ayodhya, he received a full scholarship to study Bachelor's of Engineering at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and has an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Sir is the youngest ever president of the IIMB Alumni Association, Singapore, and serves as the principal of Corporate Advisory Group at IIM Udaipur. He regularly speaks at corporates and universities on topics that concern millennials, such as careers in the 21st century, conscious capitalism, and cross-cultural understanding. He has authored An Atheist Gets the Gita, Engineering to Ikigai, and You Know the Glory, Not the Story.
Into a structure.
We
welcome my home, and there he's connecting.
We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dhruvi, for having me on this session.
Yes. We also have with us today Ms. 𝐀𝐭𝐻𝐸. Ma'am, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
That's right.
A researcher with the National Institute of Education and has a PhD from NTU Singapore. She focuses on pedagogy with a specific emphasis on language acquisition and teacher professional development. Born in Ukraine, Ma'am has widely researched and taught Western psychology and Eastern philosophies. She has translated various Indian scriptures into Eastern European languages and has authored digital storytelling for educative purposes and An Atheist Gets the Gita. She is the president of the Ukrainian Club in Singapore and was the founder of the Ukrainian Language School, Singapore. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing IIM Trichy with your presence. It is an honor to have you both with us here today. Handing it over to you now.
Thank you, Dhruvi. Thank you for your introduction. So maybe I will, in a few words, explain how we're going to proceed.
Sure.
We're going to talk about the session is called today Bhagavad Gita in Equations. So we're going to talk about two underlying concepts from Bhagavad Gita, which is happiness equation and also karma equation. But before we start with that, before we actually go on to talking and discussing and explaining concepts from Bhagavad Gita, I'll probably tell you a few words about my story. Why Bhagavad Gita? Why not just happiness? Why Bhagavad Gita? How did Bhagavad Gita came about in all this? So just to give you an idea that I'm sort of like, I'm a foreigner, right? So, I mean, what do I have to do with the Hindu scriptures and all that? I was born in the USSR, and my childhood was spent in the USSR then. Part of the Ukraine was part of the USSR in those days. And officially, we were like it was an atheist country, and there was absolutely no religions involved in our education, in our upbringing. So the official ideology was communism, and it goes along with it was set up based on the materialistic approach, materialistic philosophy of materialism, and any kind of religion was banned. So, however, ever since I remembered myself, I was asking myself questions like, who am I? Why am I here in this world? What am I doing here? How things are related? How am I related to other people? Why is it that I am the daughter of my mother and not someone else's daughter? And why is it that my brother is my brother, not somebody else's? And also, when you look beyond, when you look at the clear sky, you see the stars. I was asking this question: what is there beyond? What is it? Where is the end of the world? And then my mom would tell me, there is the world is endless. So, and then all this quest starts trying to imagine, how big is the world? Where is the end? How is it that there is no end? So all these questions were bothering me since I was a kid. And then I kept my quest was ongoing, but apparently my parents didn't tell me much, because if you think about the USSR of those days, it's sort of like North Korea of the now, you know. So if the parents even though my parents were believers, Orthodox Christians, pretty much they had this in their heads, because this is what my grandparents were following, and the grandparents, and also, but they wouldn't say much to the kids, because for the fear of in fear of that the child can just go out in the streets and blurt something out, and then my parents told me there is God, there is soul, there is something else, and then they will lose their job tomorrow. So yeah, I didn't have any kind of exposure. And then somehow, almost at the very end of the USSR, before it broke into pieces, some of the literatures were smuggled in at the end of 1980s, beginning of 90s. Some of the spiritual literature was smuggled in. So I got hold of, in my early teens, I got hold of the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy of a self-printed book, which was very difficult to read. It's like sometimes you have to really put an effort to decipher the words, what is written there. And then it was a Bhagavad Gita, the copy of the Gita, which was smuggled into the USSR by the founder of ISKCON, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So somehow we got hold of it, and my brother got hold of that book, and I started reading it, and I saw some of the things which were answering my questions. And I was very happy and pleased. Later, many years after that, when I met people from India, I realized that for you guys, it's so easily accessible. You can just go out and you can get it anywhere, in any shop. There are so many different Bhagavad Gitas, and there are so many different things. So that was my story. And then later, from Bhagavad Gita, I got to know that there are two people who generally try to look for some kind of knowledge, for jnana. Those are the ones who are generally curious and inquisitive. Those who are wise, they know that there is some, pakka jnana, like proper absolute knowledge. Those who are looking for material wealth, like praying to gods, looking for something, trying to find out what is the way. And also those who are distressed, those who are basically suffering. So yeah. Then I got to know that from Bhagavad Gita. So those who are distressed, so opposite to distress is happiness, right? So nobody wants to be distressed. We all want to be happy. So Bhagavad Gita gives us a recipe or explanation of what is happiness. Not exactly, a recipe is something which we find out for ourselves, a method and the way, but the Bhagavad Gita explains how it works. So what is happiness? Happiness is attainment minus desire. So there is this equation. Happiness equals attainment minus desire. What does it mean? Let's look at it. Okay, let's say which is something which is close to our hearts. We've all gone through like multiple exams in our life because we need to take exams for certain goals in our life. If let's say I'm like preparing for the exam and I'm like thinking, okay, hopefully I can get B. It's a difficult exam. Hopefully I can get B and pass, go through to the next one, to the next level and all. And when I take the exam, if I write the exam and I get, for some reason, something came out from my passive memory, somehow I managed to write, and then I got the A. Wow, I'm so happy. I'm out of this world with happiness. Wow. But then supposedly I was looking at B because I knew it's pretty much, I'm quite confident, maybe I'm not A, but I'm definitely B. And then something happened down the road. I forgot something. I didn't sleep properly. I got C. Oh my gosh. Distress. What else, right? We are disappointed. So you see that it's like when we fix what we want to get, it really influences, the way we feel. When we get what we get more, then we feel good. Then when we get less, then we feel not good. So this is how this equation works. And I mean, it can be applied to many you know, to many areas of our life, not only exams, like let's say buying a house, getting a job, or anything else. Another important thing to understand about what is happiness and how this equation works, that it's not only happiness equation, it's also ethics equation. For example, if we fix our desire very firmly, very strongly, this is where you know, we get our mind polluted. Our mind is tinted by this desire to get what we are aiming for, and that's where people are forging numbers. That's where students want to cheat at the exams. You know, like all these cribs are coming, and then they get caught. They can lose everything whatsoever. So happiness also it's not just, it's also ethics kind of equation. You know. Bribes are given because somebody wants to attain what they fix their mind on this desire. And also and then another important thing about this equation to understand, that what here depends on us. What depends on us? Only our desire, how we fix it, how we manipulate it, at which level we put it, because attainment doesn't really depend on us. You know, I could have prepared a wonderful presentation for a $1 million deal, and then I get stuck in the traffic jam and I don't make it there. So, you know, I can't control that. So where do we control? We can only control the desire. We can only be effort driven, not the you know, desire and result driven. We can only put our maximum effort into whatever we are doing, but we can't get our mind fixed on what we are going to get. So maybe can anybody tell me which shloka is talking about this specifically in Bhagavad Gita? Anybody, you know, anybody has that off the top of their memory? And feel free to interject and just say if you know. If you don't know, that is also okay. So I will reveal the, you know, I'll reveal the source. It's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 47, which says that you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So from here onwards, I give it over to Rahul to tell us more. Maybe you can add something, and then we will move on to another important concept.
Yeah, thank you, Galina. Thank you for that wonderful explanation of what happiness is and how that relates to ethics, and how we should be effort-driven and not result-driven, and how all that beautifully comes out of just one shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita, as we know, is a very potent book. It's a book which talks about essentially how to lead our life. So I like to call Bhagavad Gita the instruction manual for life. And when I say that, what I mean is that it explains how a jiva is an embodied soul, all of us are jiva, interacts with Prakriti. So Prakriti is everything around you, all the material nature around you is Prakriti, even I am Prakriti from your point of view. And how this jiva interacts with Prakriti in Kala. Kala is time, and time keeps progressing at its own pace. And these interactions are governed by the laws of karma, which are designed by Ishvara, or the supreme controller. So that's my understanding of Gita, but very different to you. Gita to me did not come through a self-inquiry, although ironically, I am born in Ayodhya. So Gita was accessible to me everywhere. In fact, just the shop house below my house had, they used to sell Gita in all kinds of languages, in all kinds of translation, but I never opened that book. Unlike you, see, there is one thing, accessibility on one side, and you actually going and opening it. So I never thought that I need to open this, because in my schools, in my universities, there was nothing that emphasized on picking of any of these. So very early in my teens, I came to Singapore. I was studying here in a university for photonics engineering. After that, I worked for a while, went back to IIM Bangalore in India, did my MBA from there and came back. And until this point, forget about Bhagavad Gita, I had not been exposed to any of the Indian wisdom. And that's partly because of the way both in India and in other places that I studied, our education system is very Western dominated. So you could be living in India, but your education system is designed in a way which kind of ignores the indigenous wisdom that we have in our own country. But nevertheless, through some sukriti, I managed to meet pretty interesting people in Singapore. And these were multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires. And one of those persons had created something called Artha Forum. Now, Artha is a dual meaning word here, which means meaning. Obviously, Artha means meaning, but Artha also means wealth. And the tagline of this Artha Forum was modern businesses, ancient wisdom. And in this Artha Forum, there used to be Vedic scholars who used to come and talk about ethical way of doing business, things like conscious capitalism, things like earn with integrity, give with compassion. So those advanced concepts that we now talk about in finance, impact investing, conscious capitalism, ESG, these were the concepts that these people, Vedic scholars who are coming and talking about much before they became mainstream in academia today. So that intrigued me. So it was not so much like a self-inquiry in your case where you were asking, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose in life? For me, that was like an obvious given. So I was what you would call in Indian context a charvaka, who believes that consciousness is a result of chemical reactions within your brain. So those reactions create this sense of consciousness, whereas in the Vedic thoughts, what we believe is that consciousness is a function of soul. Your body is the body made of panch bhutas is essentially dead until soul enters it. And in fact, when the soul leaves, that's what we define death. And one of the Bhagavad Gita shloka clearly says that just like we change clothes, the soul changes body. So for me, that somehow that self-inquiry question was not something that was burning. That was not something that got me attracted to the Bhagavad Gita. What got me attracted to the Bhagavad Gita was, how do we deal with the external world? And in that context, I met some of the top investors here who were obviously making a lot of money, but at the same time, they were doing it ethically. So not only they were doing well for themselves, but they were also doing good for society. And when I analyze these people slightly deeper, whether it's Ajay Piramal in India or Rajiv Srivastava here, or many other people that I can quote, even Tata in that category, all of them I realized had taken wisdom from our Indian scriptures and more specifically from the Bhagavad Gita. Now that got me interested in the Bhagavad Gita, and that then started, then I started my journey of learning what is written in our own scriptures. So in my case, ironically, I learned the Bhagavad Gita in a foreign land through foreigners. And in your case, you got a smuggled copy of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's quite interesting how both of us got the Bhagavad Gita in different circumstances, yet we managed to collaborate on this book, and now we are sharing some of that. So without further ado, let me move on to this other equation that I want to talk about. So this is the karma equation. So as I had mentioned, that Bhagavad Gita is an instruction manual, a manual which tells you how a jiva interacts with Prakriti in Kala, governed by the laws of karma, which are designed by the Ishvara or Supreme Controller. So it's very important to understand that whatever we do as a jiva, as embodied soul, that is all governed by the laws of karma. So in order to understand the laws of karma, we need to first understand and establish the concept of soul, the Atma. So jiva is basically an Atma which has a body around it. An embodied soul is called jiva. So what is Atma? What is Atman? So Atman is essentially, in our Vedic scriptures, we talk about Atman as a spiritual entity, which is called Tatha Shakti, which can stay both in the spiritual world and in the material world. So it's a bit like an amphibian, just like you have amphibians which can stay both in water and on land. So this Atma can stay both in the spiritual world and in the material world. Now, when the Atma first comes into the spiritual world, into the material world, when it has desire to see what's happening in the material world, that's when all this karma starts. And now let me explain what that is. So this equation looks daunting at first, but it's very simple. And I will explain in terms that we are more familiar with. Think of Sanchit as wealth. Sanchit means whatever you have collected so far. That's basically your wealth. Think of Kriyaman as salary, whatever salary you're getting, and think of Prarabdha as expenses. So what this equation is telling you is that your wealth today is equal to your wealth yesterday minus whatever expenses you made plus the salary you got. Okay, I repeat, your wealth today is equal to your wealth yesterday minus whatever expenses you made plus whatever salary you got. So far simple. How does that translate into the karma equation? So in the karma equation, we obviously understand karma in a very crude sense that if you do good, good will happen to you. If you do bad, bad will happen to you. While that is fine, but let's now look at karma in a more nuanced way. So there are three types of karma. One is called Sanchit karma, which is basically like your bank balance as of today. Whatever you have accumulated so far, that is Sanchit. That is your collected karma so far. Then you have Prarabdha. Prarabdha is what we call destiny. So whatever is due in this lifetime, that is your Prarabdha or destiny. So that's why we say, oh, this wasn't my destiny. So you may not have done anything in this life to deserve it, but you still get it. That's because it's your Prarabdha. We often ask, no, why I'm such a good person, why do bad things happen to me? Because that's your Prarabdha. You have something from the past life that you are tasting the fruit of now. Then finally, there is Kriyaman karma. So Kriyaman karma is basically any kriya, any activity that you do that will have a karma associated with it. It could be good, it could be bad. So when you do an activity, the karma associated with that is called Kriyaman karma. So as I said, when the soul first enters into the material world, at that time, your Sanchit is zero because there is no wealth to talk about. It's like your first day at job. You don't have any wealth. Your expenses, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the moment you enter in the material world, you start getting some salary, some karma you start building up. So then at the beginning, your wealth is equal to your salary. Of course, because you create karma, there will also be consequences of those karma, which we call destiny. So some of that will be taken out. That's like your expense. So that's how this continues. Now, one important thing to note here is that this is a separate topic. We can discuss that. So some people here would ask that you're talking about soul, you're talking about samsara, you're talking about transmigration of soul from one body to the next. What's the proof of that soul goes from one body to the next? And there are some medical studies done on this. There is a Lancet paper from Holland where they have studied people who have near-death experience, who kind of look at their body from outside their body. Now, if we believe that consciousness is a function of this body, then how are people conscious and how are they able to see their own body from outside? So obviously consciousness is not sitting within your own body. Then there are other examples as well. There is Dr. Ian Stevenson of Virginia University, who has done a lot of research on reincarnation, people who have taken rebirth. Now, has enough research been done on this? No, we have some research on this, but for the sake of discussion of this session, let's assume that soul is an axiom. Let's take it as a starting point. So we need to believe in soul. And as I've already said, discussion of whether soul exists or not, what soul is, it's a separate topic, but I will focus on this equation. So let's assume that axiom that soul exists. And what is the property of soul? It's basically an alien in this material world. It goes from one body to the next body. Why does it go from one body to the next body? Just like when the clothes we are wearing, if they are torn and tattered, we want to get new clothes because that cloth is of no use to us. Similarly, when the body that the soul is encapsulated inside, when that body is of no use to the soul, when that body becomes too weak for the soul to function. In the material world, the soul needs a material body. If the body is weak, if it's not up to the standards that soul can operate, then the soul will leave that body. This is called samsara, life and death, and it continues. How does it continue? Through the laws of karma. Every time you're building karma, you need to come back to taste the fruit of that karma. So let's recap what we have discussed so far. So far we have discussed that Sanchit karma, your collective karma today, is equal to your collective karma yesterday, minus your prarabdha, which is your destiny, plus your kriyaman karma. Why am I telling you this? So this applies not only to us, but it also applies to corporates. Whatever good or bad, whatever you are doing today, you will have consequences out of that. Some of it may be due in this quarter, some of that may be due in 10 years time, but there is no escaping, right? If you think you can escape the consequences of whatever you have committed, you're blatantly mistaken. And a lot of time what happens is managers are too focused on the short-term view, Q1 se Q2 tak. That's the horizon they have. That's why you need to have a long-term orientation of things that, hey, I am building this company to last. We always make that assumption in finance, right? The companies are forever. But how many of you know companies which are there forever? Even companies which talk about good to great, hardly any of them have been there for longer than 100 years. So then we have to build businesses in an ethical way, and which leads to the concept of conscious capitalism. What is that? That is beyond profit. You need to look at people and planet, slightly advanced topic. So I'm trying to emphasize here that no matter what you do, whether at an individual level or at a corporate level, you always have a karma, whether an individual karma or a corporate karma. So you should always be conscious about this when you are conducting yourself either in your personal capacity or in your professional capacity, or if you're running a company. So with that, I think we have just crossed the 30-minute mark. So I will take a pause here. And let's welcome questions, because the idea of this session is not for us to do a monologue, but to have a dialogue. Let's have some questions from you. Could be based on these two slides, could be based on any topic on the Bhagavad Gita or life in general. So we'll try to answer the questions with our utmost sincerity. Maybe we have the answers, maybe we don't have the answers, but let's have an open discussion. So with that, I will take a pause here.
Well, we already have something in the chat. The question: how does one know what is one's karma? Who decides it?
Yeah. So how does one know what is one's karma? Who decides it? I think the question is trying to ask, how does one know what is one's duty? So that is what it's alluding to. So here I will try to make a distinction between karma and dharma. This question is more related to dharma than karma. So karma, and that's a bit of a misconception when we use the term karma in the light of the, if my understanding is correct, in the manner in which the question has been worded. So karma is not duty. Karma is a framework which determines how your actions will have consequences. Karma is a framework, number one. Number two, we have to talk about dharma to understand this, to understand and answer this question. Dharma is not religion. That's a number one misconception. So what is dharma? So dharma, according to Mahabharata, is defined as anything that sustains. The exact definition is dharnat dharma itehu, which means anything that sustains the creation is dharma. And by corollary, anything that destroys the creation is adharma. So what does it mean? Now, anything that is there in the universe has a dharma, whether it's conscious or not conscious, whether it's jad or chetan, both have a dharma, both have a natural propensity. So that the natural propensity of something is its dharma. Let me explain. What's the natural propensity of fire? The natural propensity of fire is to burn. What's the natural propensity of water? The natural propensity of water is to wet things. What's the natural propensity of sugar? The natural propensity of sugar is to be sweet. Now, if sugar starts to be bitter, if fire starts to have calming effect, and if water starts to burn, that's adharma, because that's not the innate nature of these things. And this is what we call swabhav. So everything has a swabhav. Bhav means, bhav you understand probably from Hindi. Swa means your. So your bhav, what are you innately? That's swabhav. Now let's look at it at the level of consciousness, which is living beings. So what is dharma at the level of living beings? Still the same, sustaining the order of the universe, sustaining the creation. So let's talk about tiger, or let's talk about plants, or let's talk about cows. How much disruption can they make to this equilibrium? How much grass can a cow eat? How many deers can a tiger kill? Not many, it turns out, right? And the other thing is that when animals are given resources, they take only as much as they need. If you see birds, when they come and sit near grain, they only eat as much as they need. Whereas humans, because we have a higher conscious brain, and with that we have mind and intelligence, we always try to hoard. We always try to keep more than we need, immediately at least, right? So as in the Spider-Man movie, they say that with great responsibility, with great powers comes great responsibilities. So that is why when we come at the level of humans, because we have great power, our ability to both sustain or destroy dharma is much, 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 much greater than, let's say, a tiger or a deer or a plant. So then comes a bit of complication. What is the innate dharma of humans? What are humans supposed to do? Again, it's the same. Fundamental principle remains the same. Your dharma is to sustain the universe, sustain the creation. But how do you know what is sustaining and what is not sustaining? And that's why currently we talk about the topics of sustainability. We talk about ESG. We talk about conscious capitalism, because essentially that is putting back a sense of consciousness into everything we do. But let me also go a step further and explain why it is so difficult to follow dharma at the level of human. The problem comes because as humans, we have to deal with varying circumstances. Individually, when in isolation, we know what dharma is, individual dharma. Like, for example, if I were to ask you, should you tell a lie? You will say no. If I were to ask you, should you kill? You will say no, we should not kill. Killing is bad. But now let me complicate the situation. Should you tell lie if you're telling lie will take somebody's life? Now, in that case, it gets complicated. You probably will end up saying that if
Not
a lie
lie,
is good,
not lie, truth.
sorry, should you tell a truth? So you probably will say that a truth which is harming should not be told because it's not beneficial in the overall schema. In fact, there is this story of sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 in Mahabharata, where the sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 is a very righteous sage and he has never lied in his life. And it so happens in that story that a few robbers are chasing an innocent man. And then these robbers come to sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 and ask him, have you seen that man? And sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 nods, yeah, he's basically hiding behind those trees. And then these robbers capture this man and kill him. And despite having been righteous all his life, despite never lying, sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 does not go to Swarg for that, because his truth did not do any good to anybody. But similarly, when we ask, should you kill? The answer is obviously no, you should not kill, especially in case of human. Should you kill human? The answer is no. But let's say if you're a soldier, then should you kill? Now it gets complicated, right? Because your Kshatriya dharma is to kill. Your Kshatriya dharma is to establish order. Your Kshatriya dharma is to protect your territory. Now, in that case, it becomes slightly complicated. And with that, I will also try to introduce the concept of swadharma and pradharma. So swadharma is your dharma. As I said, that everything has an innate nature. So you also have an innate nature, which again is a function of rajas, tamas, sattva. So all of us are different propensity, which is depending on varying degree of rajas, tamas, sattva that we have. Just like in a TV, you can have millions of color with just 3 basic color, RGB, red, blue, green. Similarly, with just 3 gunas, which is rajas, tamas, sattva, you can have varying degree of personality. So swadharma, your dharma, your natural propensity, or what you should be doing, or in other words, what your profession should be in alignment to that natural propensity. So the same compassion, which is a gift for a doctor, can become an inhibition for a soldier, because soldier then cannot execute his or her duty of fighting against an enemy. So fundamentally, I will now come back to that question. How do we know what our karma is? Who decides that? Your karma is to conduct your activities in accordance with your dharma. Anytime you do actions which are not aligned to your dharma, and dharma, as I've already explained, is the natural propensity of you, what you inherently are. So let's say you are a teacher, your natural propensity is teacher, but you are forcing yourself to become an investment banker. That's your paradharma. Para means somebody else's, dharma means, as I said, innate ability or innate quality of something. So in that case, you're trying to be something you are not. And many of you, by the way, will try to be what you are not. Many of you will graduate from IIMs, will take up a job because it pays a handsome salary, knowing fully well that you don't like that job, knowing fully well that you're not aligned with that. Sooner or later, it will create stress because your karma, your actions are not aligned with your natural propensity, which is dharma. So I hope, Shivam Sharma, I have answered your question, but if I have not, then can you please come on the speaker and voice out?
It is obviously true what you have said, but again, again, as you have rightly pointed out, that even Sage 𝐀𝐭𝐡𝐞 was doing his job rightly. Still, he did not bear the right fruit for it. So in that case, what happens to be one's karma is still not clearly defined. Like, okay. And also one more thing, there are a lot of paradoxes here.
Yeah.
Like I have friends and I have my I have friends in I'm pretty sure you must be aware of the IIT coaching centers things in India.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure many students face this dilemma, either to study or invest time with their friends to build relationships. Both cannot be done together. And both have different sorts of fruits. One might land you up in a better college, but another will help you with relationships which might run in the long run. So in that case, what happens to be the right karma? Nobody knows that.
Sure. Can you repeat your first question again?
Sorry.
Can you repeat you had two parts of your question. Can you repeat your first question again?
So my basic question is that there is nothing is clearly defined. As 𝐀𝐭𝐻 also rightly pointed it out, he did his karma, but that didn't bear any fruit for him.
Yeah, so there is always time and circumstances. That's why karma at the level of human is not something as straightforward. Like you need to actually use your discretion. That's why you have power of discretion. So I'll give you another example. Let's talk about Arjuna, which is the Bhagavad Gita is all about Arjuna and Krishna having a dialogue. So in case of Arjuna, it's not that he did not know his dharma or karma. He very well knew what his dharma is. Problem was happening that one of his dharma was contrasting with the other dharma, the paradox that you're talking about. So his Kshatriya dharma is telling him to protect his kingdom, because if he doesn't protect his kingdom, if he doesn't protect the people, then a gross disorder would be established on the planet. At the same time, his family dharma, his kul dharma, is telling him not to kill his cousins, right? So now these both dharma are kind of superimposing on each other. So which dharma is superior? That knowledge of which dharma is superior is called dharma sukshma. Sukshma means nuances in dharma. That's why I said in isolation, whether you should tell a lie or truth, it's easy to say, yes, you should tell the truth. The test is, what do you do in case of a conflict, in case of a paradox? And taking your own example, whether you spend time with your friends or whether you spend time studying in a college which prepares you for preparatory examinations such as IIT, that again is a question of what makes you happy. Because ultimately, no matter what you do, you're trying to maximize your happiness. Why are we talking about karma versus dharma? Because anytime you have a stress between your karma and dharma, it's going to make you unhappy. So the thing we are trying to maximize here is happiness. So it totally depends on you. What makes you happy? What is it? Would you value your friends or would you value your studies? So you have to obviously make that choice. Now, is that making that choice easy? No. But again, you have to have frameworks. Those frameworks can help you in taking those decisions. Whether those decisions are something that are foolproof, that depends on practice. The more you practice this, the more you understand whether what you are doing is making you happy or unhappy. How do you know something is making you unhappy or something is making you happy? It's actually very simple, Shivam. It's whenever you're doing something, are you feeling light like a cork or are you feeling heavy like a stone? So that's a simple litmus test. So if you're with your friends and if you're feeling light like a cork, maybe that's what your dharma is. Maybe you are a people's person. Maybe you will do much better there. But if you are dragging yourself to a coaching institute in order to learn for examination, and that's totally against your liking, you are fixating yourself on the end goal of getting into IIT, as opposed to you enjoying the learning process, maybe that's not your dharma. Maybe that is not your natural propensity. So it's, first of all, you need to understand who am I? That is what Galina was telling, right? Who am I is a very important question. Who am I? Most of us will go from cradle to grave without realizing who am I. So before you try to understand who are others and what you want from your life, you need to understand who am I? What is my natural propensity? Am I a physicist or am I a manager? Or am I an innovator? Or am I a student? Am I an academician? Or am I a people's person? Whatever you like to call it. So that's a process, Shivam. In fact, my other book is exactly about this. It's on Ikigai. So I have this in my hand. There is a couple of books I've written about this. One is Engineering to Ikigai. Another is, The Glory, Not the Story. So both these books answer that same question. What is my Ikigai? What is my purpose in life? And Ikigai, there is a simple definition that I use. Ikigai is, first of all, finding out what you're passionate about. And once you know what you're passionate about, within that passion, using your skills. All of us have skills. As you said, some people have skills of being totally amicable to their friends. They're likable personalities. Some people have the skill of solving problems, solving complex mathematical equations. So you need to know what your skill is. And once you know what your skill is, and once you know what your passion is, you need to use both of that to solve for a world problem. Why a world problem? Because if it's not a world problem, it's not worth solving for. It's definitely not worth Shivam's time, somebody of your caliber. And most importantly, you need to solve for it in such a way that you get paid for it, because if you're not getting paid for it, then it's not your ikigai. So Shivam, I hope I have somewhat tried to answer your question. It's obviously a difficult question that you're asking. How do you know what your dharma is? How do you know what your karma is? But over time, you get to know what you like, what you don't like. And I think that is the litmus test.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was a good attempt.
Well, however, I just wanted to add a little bit on top also. It's for humans, it's not easy because there is a lot of factors involved, you know, and it's not always so straightforward. Like when we are looking at okay, Atma is a soul which ends up in the material world. When Atma enters the material world, it can take different types of bodies. So all those bodies are jivas. So we are all jivas in human, we are jivas in human bodies. There are jivas in animal bodies and so on. So when you look at the animals, they literally don't have to bear the fruit. They literally don't accumulate any, what is that? New karma. Yeah.
So what Galina is trying to say here is that, you know, as I said, with great powers comes great responsibility. This might surprise some of you, but only humans have karma. Animals don't have karma. They're just doing time.
Animals act on the basis of their previous karma. They get the body based on whatever they've been doing before, and they don't. They already bear the fruit of what they have done, but they do not earn any new in the life of the animal, whereas humans do. And that's we are coming back to this point of you know, buddhi and manas. So we have the intellect and we have the mind. So it's very important to find out your dharma, to understand what your dharma is, to understand what your natural propensity is. Like, for example, for somehow, I mean, like, it's not for everyone is like that. Somebody is born and not everyone is the same. Some people are born and they already know what they want to be from the kindergarten, you know. And some people, even by end of their life, they don't even know what they were doing, you know. So it's the attempts are different, but it's always important to try at least to make an attempt to. For those people who find what is their dharma, then once they've done that, once they find, okay, let's call it ikigai or calling or dharma or whatever it is, then it is important to use your discretion and to use your intelligence. In that case, you know, if you already found that and you need to do effort, to make effort on that path, then your intelligence has to tell you to make the right choice, whether I have to study now and make effort to exercise my dharma, or I have to go and, you know, mingle with my friends. What is, you know, we have to weigh two things. So it's always, for humans, it's always this battle, whether I should do thing or I should not do thing. But we can't be inactive. We have to act. Yeah, so that's why I always like that movie. It's called City of Joy. At the end, there's this protagonist who said, it's difficult to be a human, you know, it's so difficult to be a human.
well, I'll add something to that what you said, and this is what I believe influences in some way or form. So I call it the ABCD of life. So I say the A is association, the associations you make, the friends that you're talking about, Shivam, the people you hang out with. And B is books, the books you read, they somehow influence the choices you make. So I just repeat, the associations you make and the books you read, they will impact the choices that you make. And that is eventually going to lead to your destiny, whatever destiny you're building for yourself. So one needs to be very cautious about the associations you make and the books you read. And continuing on what Galina was saying about mind and buddhi. So there is this very beautiful description. I think it's in Katha Upanishad, which talks about how does this human body functions. So it talks about, think of 5 horses, and these 5 horses are your senses. These are your sense organs. So these is your eyes, ear, nose, skin, basically tongue. These are your 5 sense organs, and these are like wild horses. And there is a rein. There is a rein which is controlled by mind. So this mind is being pulled in all directions by these horses, by these sensory stimulations. So if your mind is not conditioned, then you will be pulled in all directions, governed by your sense organs. So how to control the mind? To control the mind or manas, you need buddhi. Buddhi is intellect. Now, oftentimes in the Western world, they don't even know what the difference between manas and buddhi is, because to them it's the same. It's the brain, right? Or we say this guy is smart or this guy is intellect, the same thing. But manas and buddhi fundamentally are two different faculties in our Vedic scriptures. What is the difference? So if I were to give you a simple example, if let's say somebody is diabetic, so it is the manas, it is the mind which says, okay, go eat that sweet dish. But it's the buddhi or the intellect which tells you if you're going to eat that, you are going to die. So intellect is superior to manas. Then comes your soul. Soul is the driver. Soul is the one which is controlling all this. So if you're not in a good relation, if the mind is not controlled by intellect, and if the intellect is not controlled by soul, and that's why that soul is very important, the natural propensity of soul, what is its natural dharma, then you will obviously be pulled in all directions. So again, Shivam, we are trying our best. I hope it somewhat answers your question, but it's obviously a loaded question, and people have pondered about it. For that is why the itihasas have been written. Why do we have Ramayana and Mahabharata? Exactly to tell what dharma is. If it was so simple, why would you need a scripture which is 100,000 verses?
It's an important question. It is a very important question.
Let's see if we have any other question, and maybe you can voice out questions. That'll be much more interactive.
Yes, I have a few needed clarifications. See, we are referring to Sanchita L and L minus 1, right? Now, one is about karma at the end of current life, the other is end of previous life. Now, is prarabdha the karma at the beginning of this life?
No.
No.
So again, I'll repeat what this is. This is trying to explain the three different karmas in form of equation. Prarabdha is destiny. Like I believe you're a faculty at IIM Trichy. So
Yes.
Obviously you would have worked very hard to come to IIM Trichy as a professor. But at the same time, we also have an element of destiny there, right? You are destined to be in IIM Trichy and not in IIM 𝐀𝐭𝐻 next door, right? For whatever reason, right? So that then becomes your destiny. So prarabdha is your destiny. So what it's saying is, in this equation particularly, let's start with Sanchit. Let's start with this, okay? Let's not look at the left-hand side. Let's look at the right-hand side. The day you are born, that day in this lifetime, okay? Not in the previous. That day, your karma up to that time, let's say it just been 0 seconds that you're born, is basically whatever you accumulated in the past life, correct? That part is correct. Then after a few hours, after a few days, you are doing certain activities and they are creating new karma. This is a bit like salary. So you have added something to this, and then something might be due, and something might be due even at life, even at your birth. Some kids are born with one eye, some kids are born with one leg. How does that happen? That's their destiny. That has been sealed even before they are born. Somehow it happens like that. And there is no other way you can explain why some kids are born with one leg, why some kids are born with one eye, other than the karma equation, other than the concept of karma. Because there is no philosophy in the Western world which can explain why good thing happens to bad people or why bad thing happens to good people, why somebody is born disabled. So prarabdha is your destiny, whether good or bad, whatever is happening. So let me just explain another concept which will make this very clear. So this karma equation, when you are entering the material world, at that time this is 0 because you have not yet accumulated any karma. What is moksha? And I think that will explain where this is coming from. Moksha basically is you leaving this material world. When can you leave? You can leave when your karma is back to 0. So the rule of the game is very simple. You came into this world when your karma was 0, when your sanchit karma was 0. You can leave when your sanchit karma is 0 again. But the problem is that playing this game is very difficult because any activity you do creates new karma. And that new karma, your one lifetime may not be enough for you to enjoy the fruits of that karma. And then you need another lifetime, another lifetime, another lifetime. So you keep coming and taking rebirth just to enjoy that prarabdha, whatever is due based on your previous karma.
Enjoy or suffer.
Enjoy or suffer. So, when we say you do good karma, good will happen to you. When we say you do bad karma, bad will happen to you. That is correct. But if you think about it, whether you do good karma or you do bad karma, you still have to enjoy the fruits of that, right? So one is a golden chain, one is an iron chain, but both are chain. But your goal of life is to get out of this chain. Right? So that I hope answers in some way, Professor Vijaya.
Yes. And the other thing is when you are referring to happiness, is there a difference between happiness and pleasure?
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about the five senses and they're going astray, we do that. Of course, Sigmund Freud has talked about the id, right? You go, I mean, it is impulsive for immediate gratification and pleasure principle. So isn't that different from happiness? How do you differentiate between the two?
So there are a lot of things here. I mean, that's why this equation is so innocuous at first, and then it gets so complicated and so potent. So there is contentment, there is pleasure, there is delight, there is despair, right? All those.
Do you differentiate between happiness and pleasure? Is there a need to do it?
I don't
Or
think
are they the same?
I don't think there is a need. Galina, you may have a different answer, but let me just say here. See,
I guess okay, you go ahead first.
This is in Prof. Vijaya. This is instantaneous in time, at one moment in time. So if you want to know the gross aggregate happiness, you have to integrate this from at least in one lifetime, from birth to death. Let me explain what I mean by that. Many of the people in today's session are students, right? So on day one, when they got the offer from IIM Trichy, that day they were happy, right? That was instantaneous happiness at that moment in time. It maybe gave them immense happiness, immense joy, immense pleasure. You can call it joy, pleasure, happiness, whatever you call it. But then now that they are, let's say, 1 year into the course, is that attainment of getting into IIM Trichy, is that enough for them to keep them happy? So this equation is dynamic. You need to constantly be attaining more and more. It's like a treadmill that you need to always be running in order to be happy. So from that point of view, my answer to this would be, whether you call it pleasure or joy or happiness, it's the same thing. But Galina, you have a different take on this, right?
Yeah, because you see, the thing is that Bhagavad Gita operates with just way many concepts, you know. So we are trying to like this happiness equation, it's an attempt to put to understand and explain certain things like attainment and desire. But there are also three gunas, you know, three gunas of the material nature, and there are also people who are operating within those three gunas. So we have people who are operating in the mode of tamas, for example, and for that kind of person, like if it's a total tamas, for them it might be happiness and pleasure when they kill someone, if you know what I mean. But we have someone who operates in the mode of goodness, and for that person, happiness will be when they, you know, save like 1 million lives. Or we have someone who is operating within the mode of, let's say, passion. But again, all these gunas, they are not so straightforward. They are all mixed. It's like colors. It's like when we were talking about, we have green, yellow, and red, and then we have different combinations. So we can only roughly, you know, talk about these things, about these three gunas. So happiness and pleasure, it's I mean, pleasure is more associated with the, you know, with the sense gratification, with the senses, you know, like when we have eaten a good meal, we are pleased, we experience pleasure. And happiness is a much broader notion. It's something which is not ending with the end of when that sense is being gratified. So, and also we have to remember that there are three modes of there are three gunas. So like I was talking to my friend some recently, and she was saying that, you know, we always think how to better life. We always think of doing some charity and all, but there are people who are you know, you give them just a simple meal and they will be happy, and they are not thinking of anything else. So there are different people who are operating in the different kind of like modes, in the different gunas. So again, there are different types of what people consider happiness.
I think, Galina, you're talking about rasas. So there is a parthiva rasa, there is swargiya rasa. So different kind of rasa is basically what gives you enjoyment in life, right? So depending on what propensity you have, you could either be at the parthiv, which is the earthly rasas, or you could be at the swargiya rasa level. Is that what you're hinting at? Not
exactly. I what I meant is literally the guna, at which level a human is to experience what is happiness for them, you know, if you know what I mean. As I said, like for let's say for somebody who is in the whose consciousness in the mode of in tamas, and they think that killing is good. Their their buddhi is so their mind corrupt. So they think for them, like for example, to chase their victim and kill their victim is happiness. So I'm literally talking about like what kind of mode we are operating, what kind of consciousness, at which level of consciousness,
But doesn't that level of consciousness affect whether you are seeking a parthiv rasa or a swargiya rasa or a brahman rasa or a vaikuntha rasa?
That is also, that is more on the, I think I didn't mean that, but maybe if you can tell more about that. But what I meant is like between happiness and pleasure, what.
So let's listen from, there is one gentleman, I don't know if he's prof or student, R. Shankaran, who wants to add something on this.
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. I'm still a student of philosophy. Specifically to Professor Vijaya's question. Yes, happiness and pleasure are two different things. When we talk in our Shastras, there are 5 sensory organs which are called the Bahir Indriyani, external senses. Okay, the 5 Indriyas. Whatever pleases those 5 Indriyas, I get a good fragrance, I am able to hear something very nice, I eat something good, I have a good sensual, touch and kind of things, I see nice things. These are pleasures which make those sensory perceptions happy, and they are momentary. Okay, they are pleasures, no issues. Then what is happiness? Happiness is actually what is perceived and recorded in the mind. There may be a wonderful thing I may be seeing, my eyes will record it, the eyes will even reckon that, and then there is a pleasure, but it doesn't get recorded in the mind. Like, in the middle of a movie or in the middle of a meeting, you eat a nice chocolate brownie. There is a pleasure. The tongue notices it, the tongue records it, but the mind doesn't record it. So this happiness, this pleasure doesn't get translated into happiness. Happiness is something what gets recorded in the mind. I'm able to recall. I'm able to recall and probably relive. Okay, that is actually happiness. But what is said in the Shastras, the Upanishad, as well as in the Gita, there is a word in Sanskrit for which I am yet to find an equivalent in English, is Ananda.
Satchit Ananda or Ananda, yeah.
Yeah, the Ananda part is not felt by those 5 sensory organs. It is not felt or recorded by the mind, but it is something beyond. It is what is felt by the soul. I'll give you an example. You get a promotion tomorrow. Okay, somebody gets a promotion. It's very nice. A lot of people come and congratulate. For a month, that euphoria lies in the mind. It is not connected to the sensory organs, but it is entirely to the mind. The mind perceives it. There is a great ecstasy in that. Okay, but then after 2 years, when you recall that day, okay, I got another promotion, it dies down. Ananda is something, a sensation, an experience. It's not a sensation, sorry. It's an experience which doesn't die down. Any day you recall it, you will have exactly the same experience what you had when you first felt. Okay, I'll give you an example. I mean, that Ananda, the God tells us, I mean, our Shastras say that the God tells us the glimpses of Ananda. Okay, everyone passes through those glimpses. You ask any lady the experience what she had when she held her first child in her hand, it will never be forgettable. That's Ananda. That moment. After that, okay, the child is a boy or a girl, it looks like me, its color is good, it is there, it has more hair, all those physical things will come. But the first feel is something unexplainable. The first touch. Similarly, you go to a music concert. It's a kind of music. Okay, the music concert. He completes a piece. I mean, in Carnatic music, I would say a lovely piece in Shankarabharanam, maybe a Ragam Dhanam Pallavi with a Tani. At the end of it, there is a sense of fillingness in my whole self. It is not the sound what I heard. It is not the applause, whatever everyone said. It is not the dance. It's not the singer. but there is an entirely different kind of an experience, something that fills in, but that lasts only for a few moments, maybe a couple of seconds. After that, I get into technicalities, the physicals. So whatever I am able to explain, describe is not Ananda. It can at best be happiness. But Ananda is something which transcends. What the Taittiriya says, yato vacho nivartante aprapyamanasa saha. It's something where my words go and fail to explain and come back. It's something where my mind is going, unable to perceive it, see it in my mind. It fails and comes back. It's like an email I sent to a wrong email address. It comes back. So this Ananda state is not something that can be explained. What mostly we get is pleasure. Some of them get translated into happiness. We are able to recall and enjoy for some time, maybe in a lesser magnitude, going down. But then there are definitely certain moments of Ananda which lie with us. The secret is to increase the occurrence of those moments of Ananda, and next to increase the duration of those sensations of Ananda within us. From a few seconds, can I make it a few minutes? Can I make it a 15 minutes kind of an affair? Can I make it into a half an hour? What people do in Samadhi is exactly that. And how do we do that? That's what exactly Gita says later in the Raja Yoga. Control your mind. The mind control is the only thing that comes in there. And how do I control mind? It is something like, I'm basically from oil industry. Again, give you an example. It's a simpler example. I have a bottle of, say, shampoo. I want to empty it out. How do I do it? I put it down. Shampoo flows down, flows down. But at some point, the quantity of shampoo sticks to the bottle, sticks to the sides of the bottle. I have to take it out. It doesn't come on its own. I show it under a tap, a flowing water. Over a period, it gets clean, gets clean, gets clean. Maybe about a half an hour, the bottle is fully clean of that shampoo. So that vasana, that is whatever the gunas, the three gunas what we were talking about, the three gunas what have stuck to my heart have to be cleaned over a period by abhyasa, by practice. Krishna says, abhyasena tu 𝐀𝐭𝐤. He says it's only by practice. I do it one day, I do it for 2 days, I try it maybe 5 minutes. No, it's a conscious effort for me to check myself at every point. Whatever I say, whatever I think, whatever I do, is it my dharma? Is it what my goal is about? Does it good to me? Does it do any good to me? The moment I get into that kind of a consciousness, it cleanses my internals. It cleanses my mind. Then I land into something what is called Ananda, which is much superior to happiness. Hope I have answered. Thank you.
Prof. Shankar, and that was lovely. Thank you so much for that explanation.
Ananda is translated in English, I guess, as bliss, right? Which is even more than happiness.
Yes. So Sat Chit Ananda, which is Sat is eternal, Chit is consciousness, super consciousness, and Ananda is bliss. So there is another interesting question by Venkat Prasad in the chat. How do we know what's happening in our life is corrupt? Don't even bother. Laws of karma are very intricate. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, it says the laws of karma are very intricate. Your job is not to you will not even be able to eat or breathe if you start analyzing if each of my action is positive, negative, prarabdha, or what is the impact of this going to be. What you need to do is, just like Prof. Shankaran was saying, you need to increase the amount of bliss that you have in your life. What you need to do is try to increase the karmas, the kriya in such a way that they don't have karma. How do you do it? So there we have this concept of nishkam karma, which you might have heard. So nish means without, kama means desire, and karma means activity or the consequence of that. So when you are conducting any activity with the intention that I am not the karta, I am not the doer, I am not doing this, I am just doing this without any heed to the consequences, that then becomes your nishkam karma. So your goal in life is, as I said, whether you do so-called good karma or bad karma, either ways, it's a chain, and you don't want to be building this chain. So do nishkam karma. Easy to say, very difficult to follow. How many of you do anything without attaching any heed to the result to it? Hardly any, right? And there also, we kind of have certain notion of this is good, this is bad. Like if I were to ask you, is charity good? Most of you will say yes, but it depends. It can be good, bad, or neutral. So if you are giving charity to an organization and unknowingly you don't know, but that organization then channels that money to basically make bombs to blow up people, you are going to face the consequence, even though you're not directly involved, but still you are going to face the consequences of whatever was triggered. Similarly, that same charity, if you're doing charity with the intention that tomorrow all the newspapers should have my name in the front line that I donated X billion dollars or X million dollars. Now that charity is of course in the mode of goodness, but you are trying to attach yourself to the result of that charity. In that case, you are doing punya. You're not doing nishkam karma. You are going to have punya from it, which is basically the golden chain I'm talking about. And similarly, but if you do charity without any heed to what happens, without thinking that I'm going to be famous because of this, and just doing because you think that's your duty, then that becomes your nishkam karma. So your aim in life is, because most of you are, everybody here is an IIM student, and most of you probably are engineers. You try to over engineer this and try to think, okay, each action, can I break it down and can I calculate? You can't. You just need to have a clear conscience, and you need to increase your nishkam karma. Try to go towards that. And again, another very similar question that I get sometimes when I'm speaking at IIMs and along with Galina is that happiness equation. People will come and say that, can you make desire zero? Then you're always happy. Can you make desire zero? Just answer for yourself. Mathematically, you try to say that, but you can't, right? So humans will have desire. So the question here is, how do I make that desire bigger than self? How do I make it not about my selfish endeavor, but about, let's say, about my family, about society, about country at large, about humanity at large? So once you do that, then you are basically becoming more and more magnanimous. We're trying to then put a positive spin to a desire, which is quote unquote more pious. So it's a process. I hope, Venkat, I've answered your question. And there are some more questions, but does the theory of karma explain so much that it explains nothing at all? Wow. So very good question, Nayak. Some people have argued that theory of karma is unfalsifiable. That means you can't falsify it, because there are theories that you can't falsify. For example, there is this Russell's kettle, right, which says that there is a microscopic kettle black kettle between Earth and Mars that's rotating around the solar system. Now go and prove me wrong. So you can't prove it wrong. So critics of karma have argued, first of all, to analyze whether karma is acting or not, you need the records of Chitragupta, who is basically maintaining all these records, right? What karma you have done, how much is the balance and all. Do you have that? No. Then what happens in past life? What happens in present life? So can we do a controlled experiment? Can we take some volunteers from IIM Trichy and put them in a system and say, okay, I'm not going to kill you and then see where you're born, and then I will conduct this controlled experiment. Can you do that? No, right? So we only have proof by proxy. People who come and say that I was in past life this and this and that, or people who go through this near-death experience, that then establishes the concept of soul very firmly. So now when that is established, then you obviously know that something goes beyond and over so-called death, the death of the Parthiv Sharir. And from there on, you build on these concepts. So to answer your question directly, does theory of karma explain so much that it explains nothing? I think it's a point of view. You can say it explains nothing, because you can believe that I'm only this life, but then that leaves you with more questions than answers. Why is a child born with one eye? Why is child born with one leg? Can you answer that? Probably not. So it is a framework which tries to somewhat answer these questions. Can you prove it? I think not in the sense that you understand proof. Again, in our Shastras, we have Shad Pramar. We have various ways of proving. So you have, and my third chapter in my book deals with it. So you have Pratyaksh Pramar, something that you can see. Then you have Anuman Pramar, then you have Shad Pramar, then you have Upmana, then you have Arthapatti. You have 6 Pramars. And depending on which of these Pramar you accept, there are various schools of Hinduism. You have Shad Darshans, right? And beyond the Shad Darshan, you have Charvaka. Charvaka only believes in Pratyaksh, kind of similar to the modern scientists. They say only what I see, I believe. What I don't see, I don't believe. Right? So again, it's a framework that you apply, and then you see if it answers your questions. I think it answers a lot of questions, but maybe to answer your question directly, does it explain so much that it explains nothing at all? I think the jury is still out there.
Can I answer that question?
Sure, Prof. Shankaran.
It's a very simple equation in mathematics. We all know 1 by 0 is equal to infinity. If I take 1 as life, that is me, and karma explains nothing, then it explains infinite things. And if 1 by 0 is infinity, Max doesn't say that 1 by infinity is 0. Just because it explains so much, it doesn't become 0. The converse is not true. So that's how life is. Life is more like mathematics.
Very, very beautifully said. And on that concept of infinity, certain more topics that we can touch upon. So you see, in the study of physics, we try to answer how the universe came about, how big the universe is, where does it end? And we know from Big Bang theory, from cosmic background radiation, we know that the entire universe that we can see, which is called the observable universe that you can ever see, that itself is only 46 billion light years, right? That's the entire radius. And with our current technology, we can only see 14.5 billion years, a subset of that. Why we can't see beyond that? Because the galaxies beyond that are moving so fast that they're moving faster than the speed of light. And we know nothing travels faster than the speed of light. So no information from those galaxies can ever come. So that is again adding on to what Prof was saying just now, that about infinity. So universe is infinite. Actually, scientists have acknowledged that. Another beautiful thing, there is something called Banach-Tarski in mathematics. Some of you are maths major may know that. In Banach-Tarski, you take one ball, and from one ball, you can create exactly identical another ball, which is exactly same volume, exactly same density. How is it possible? Because of again, this concept of infinity. You see, infinity plus infinity is also infinity. 2 times infinity is also infinity, right? So what is happening is that when you take that ball and you divide it into infinitely many parts, then you can actually create 2 different balls out of it. This is a mathematically proven formula. So rigorous mathematics has been done on this. And that brings in the concept of Isha Upanishad, which says, I am complete. What emanates from me is also complete. So what it's saying is that if you hypothetically think of God as infinite, so God is infinite, what comes out of God is also infinite, and yet something is coming out of God, yet the God remains infinite. So I hope because we got into this topic of infinite, that kind of helps you think a little bit about these concepts. Any more questions? No more questions?
I have a thought on the shloka with which we started.
Yeah.
Galina started. It's a wonderful shloka. It's probably somebody really sits down, he can write a whole book on that shloka alone. It's so loaded. See, the typical translation of the shloka, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhuhu sangostva karmani. Lovely shloka. Yeah. The first quarter is very simple. Karmani eva adhikaraha te. You have a right over karma. Only over karma.
Yeah, I'll come in the last 15 minutes.
Yes.
I'll come in the last 15 minutes.
Okay. Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. So this, I have a right over karma in the sense, I have a right over doing a karma. Do I have a right over not doing a karma? No, because the fourth quarter very clearly says,
do not be
sangaha astu akarmani. Okay, so that is ruled out. So what kind of a right I have over a karma? I have 2 rights. I have a right to do a karma which is within my swadharma. I also have a right to do the karma as nishkamya, without a desire. Okay, so I have 2 rights over there. I do something which is within my swadharma, and I do it without a desire. Now, okay, we keep that. But the next one says, ma phaleshu. I don't have a ma phaleshu what? Adhikaraha. I don't have a right over the
fruits.
Fruits. But then the moment I do a karma, the fruit automatically comes. If I do a karma, if I do an action, the karma comes on. I can't stop it. It's more natural. So what does the shloka says? The shloka says, I don't have a right over influencing the result of the karma. That's what the third quarter is about. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. I put a mango seed in the ground, and then when I expect a coconut, I can't. If I have put a mango seed, I'll get only a mango seed, and I'll definitely get a mango seed. I can't avoid it.
Yeah, and Prof. Shankaran, that mango seed example is something which I also talk about in the book. So some people say, if I do some good karma and some bad karma, do they cancel out? So it's like you say, I'm putting 5 sweet mango seeds and 3 lemon seeds. So do they cancel out? No, you still have to bear the consequences of 5 mango seeds and 3 lemon plant. It's not like they cancel out. And just extending to what Prof. Shankaran is saying, now we always hear about that if you do nishkam karma, then there is no karma attached to it. Now, let's understand why. So there are 5 factors which are responsible into creating karma from a kriya. What are these 5? Number 1 is adhisthanam. Adhisthanam is platform. What is platform? Your body becomes a platform which is doing this kriya. Then is karta. What is karta? Karta is this egoistic sense of me being the doer. That ego itself is a very loaded concept, but just understand the sense of me being the doer. Then is karanam. What is karanam? You must have heard about this word called upkaran. Upkaran is basically instruments. So your entire sense organs, your action organs, they become your karanam, who are actually acting on this, through which you will be doing this karma. And then there is chesta. Chesta is endeavor. And finally, there is divine. Divine is the divine will. You can do whatever you want to, but if there is no divine will, there is no action going to happen. So what can you take out of this? Can you take out adhisthanam? Can you take out your body? Can you take out the platform? No. Can you take out your karnam? Can you cut your hand? Can you cut your eyes when you're doing an action? No. Can you take out chesta? Without chesta, nothing is going to happen. Just now, Professor said, you have to have the endeavor. You can't be doing an inaction. You can't be just sitting there and not doing something. Divine will. Can you take out the divine will? No. What can you take out? You can take out that sense of me being the doer. So when you take away that sense of me being the doer, when you take away that ahamkar, when you take away that, then what happens? Then what happens is that you reach a consciousness where you detach yourself from the result, where you do not view yourself as the doer of that action. And that's why you don't have karma from such a kriya. So it's very important to understand why this is the case. It's not like some random shloka that has been thrown without any explanation, without any logic to it. So I wanted to just emphasize those 5 things which go into making a kriya into a karma.
Can I add something more there?
Sure.
It's a beautiful thing that you explain. The I makes a difference. I'll just give an example. Suppose I'm a great writer and I buy a pen, maybe a cross gold, beautiful pen. I end up writing. What the pen does is only translate my thoughts into words, into written words. The pen doesn't do anything. The pen doesn't add anything to it. The pen doesn't have any contribution in what is being written in the kriya. It's only an instrument. Assume the pen one day thinks, I am a cross gold. I am a great thing. So let me add a few more words to it. So I start writing and the pen adds a few more words to it. What do? I first throw away the pen. So I need to always, remind me that I am only an instrument in the grand plan of the cosmic guy. I mean, whatever way I call him a god, I call him anything else, but he's a cosmic guy. I'm a part of it in the total cosmic plan, that something has to happen through me. I am neither the creator. I am not also the guy who will decide where this fruit will go, when, who, to whom, what, and all that. I am only an instrument. The moment I became a good cross gold, I'll be used by God for all the good things. The moment I think, let me add a few more words to it, God throws me out. That is where I get into karma. A book, when it is written, whether the book is good or bad, the blame goes to the writer, not to the pen. It's in the same way, when I consider me only as an instrument, the result, whether it is good, bad, ugly, acceptable, not acceptable, it goes back to the creator who is the God, not to me. But the moment I do it, or I think that I am doing it, the blame comes to me and I get thrown out. So the point of I, what you said, Mr. Rahul, is the most important element in the whole Vedanta.
And that's something which we don't understand, right? Because you see, we say my hand, my, like this concept of my, the aham becomes ahankar, ahankar becomes abhiman, you know, that concept of my becomes so entangled. Like when a soul, the causal body comes, it's just soul, right? And then you have those panch kosha, you start thinking, oh, this is my body, my hand. So if you're saying my hand, then it obviously is who is this I who is attaching this possessiveness to this hand? There must be an I, right? And then we first we start thinking this body is me. Then we start saying, okay, this blazer I'm wearing is me. Then I start associating with my titles. Okay, I'm a professor, so that professor is me. Or if I get married, that wife is mine, that child is mine. That this concept of I, this keeps just growing. So entire Upanishads are just a study of undoing this concept of ego. Who are you? So you have to unlayer this so much so that you have to unlayer your body. Even you talk about panch koshas, you talk about the gross body, the sthul sharir, the karna sharir, and the what is the other one, Galina? Sthul, karna, and the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body, basically that. So
yeah.
the whole idea is to unlayer this, to understand who you are really. That's why when it says athato brahma jigyasa, now that you have the human life, inquire what? Inquire who the Brahman is. But how do you do that? You do that by starting asking this question, who am I? And once you understand who am I, you understand who the Brahman is. And Brahman, by the way, is the sum total of everything and anything that you see around and whatever you don't see. And again, in continuation to that, I'll bring in this topic of yoga. So Professor also mentioned a little bit, hinted about yoga. So what is yoga? He talked about samadhi. So yoga is basically, it comes from the word yug, which means to connect. So the question is connecting what? Connecting the Atman to the Brahman, connecting, understanding how a soul is related to the super soul. Many ways of doing it. That's why you have 4 different kinds of yoga. You have the bhakti yoga, you have the jnana yoga, you have the dhyana yoga, you have the karma yoga. Why do you have different paths? It's a bit like science. People say I'm a student of science, but nobody is a student of science. You are all student of either chemistry, physics, biology, or mathematics, or engineering, right? So similarly, when a person is so-called Gyan Yogi, who is trying to understand how the universe operates, so that person is trying to understand the nature of God in terms of Brahman. How does the Brahman operate? So to that effect, I personally like to call that person a physicist, trying to understand how this universe and physics and all that operates. Then there are other kind of people who try to understand this Dhyan Yoga, which Professor was mentioning, who are trying to understand the Paramatma within. So they kind of become like biologists. They're trying to look inside. Okay, what is inside me? And then there is Ashtanga, the eight ladders through which you reach there. Finally, there is Samadhi, which the professor was talking about. But you start with Yam, Niyam, Asana, and then Pranayam. That is all because in order for you to meditate, in order for you to do Dhyan on who the ultimate is, you first need to stabilize your body. So if you think that yoga is turning and twisting of your body, you're totally mistaken. That is the first step, to stabilize your body so that then you can stabilize your mind and focus on who the Paramatma is. And then there are other kind of yogis, bhakti yogis. Bhakti yogis are trying to establish that loving relationship. And we say love is chemistry, right? So they kind of become those chemists. And finally, there are engineers, right? What are engineers doing? They're making things. So they become like karma yogi. But they are doing their karma in a nishkam bhav. They are not trying to attach. They are not trying to be doer. They are not like those pens which Professor talked about, thinking that I am the writer. The moment you do that, you're out. So I think we will take a pause here. Professor, shall we hand it back because we have 5 minutes left?
Yes, sir. Does anyone else have questions? I think there is just one question. Probably you can very quickly answer that. There's a question from Vaishnavi. Maybe in a couple of minutes, if you can just quickly answer that.
What's the question, sir?
If a person ends his life by means of unnatural death,
oh, of course. You of course create karma. So, so escaping life through killing yourself is the most gross activity that you can ever commit. That of course has grave consequences. See, escaping, you know, the problem that happens there is that some people view that their sufferings are so great that the only way to escape that is through taking your own life. And that has grave consequences, as grave as you can imagine. Maybe Prof. Shankaran, if you want to add something on that.
Maybe before Prof. Shankar says, I just wanted to add, the thing is that, again, based on karma, there is a certain amount of, like when the soul lives in the material world, there is a need for material body to interact with the material elements. So the same 5 elements, the whole, the world is created of, which is space, air, fire, water, and earth. The same materials comprises our bodies also. We don't see it, but it is there. We have fire, digestive fire. We have fire in the brain, sort of like in different forms. We have water also, mostly earth and water concentrated in lungs. So we need the physical body. However, based on karma, there is a certain amount of time which the soul is supposed to spend in that body. Once the body, the material body is killed, it's not there anymore. So, but there is still this certain amount of time which the soul has to spend. That's why we see the subtle bodies, the Bhut, and all that kind of stuff. I can't tell you the reference for that. I mean, if somebody is interested in it, I'll find the reference, but I did read that in the scriptures. It's not directly written in Bhagavad Gita. Maybe Mr. Shankaran knows more about where it is written.
Thanks a lot. See, this is a question what many of the people think. It's an end. No, it's a beginning. It's a very horrible kind of a beginning, because the body what has been given to me, I mean, when I say me, it is the Atma within me. The Atma has been given a body to achieve something. Especially the human body has been given a lot of facilities which no other creature on this earth has. So the whole purpose of giving this body to me is to achieve something what no other creature can do. And I'm supposed to travel higher. In fact, Gita says, if I am on my path to moksha and my time ends, in the next birth, I will start from the same place from where I left in my previous birth. So my effort in this birth are not going to end. They will continue till I reach moksha. So if in this birth I am suffering, it is something like, cleansing. Like, I get into a house and the house is full of dirt, lot of cobwebs, lot of, garbage. It's not clean for a long time. And then I get into my house. Get into a house. Somebody has allotted me. I get into a house. What do? Arey, this house is very horrible. Do I run back? I clean it. It's an effort. So it's the same way if I have been given a body which suffers. Okay. Now this suffering, I'll take it in 2 parts. Is it a physical suffering? Is it a suffering of the mind? If it is a physical suffering, yes, it's something that I have to go through because I'm clearing some of my, sanchita karma coming down to me as a prarabdha so that I'm clearing some of my debts. But if it is a suffering of the mind, the body is not the reason for it. If Tom makes a mistake, I don't go and kill Robert. That's unfair. I can't do it. So in either way, ending my life unnaturally is not a solution. In fact, I am killing someone else. The I in me is killing this body, which is something else, which is probably a million or many millions of cells. I am killing them before they live their own life. It is as good as a genocide whole. That's why I said it's a very horrible kind of a beginning. It shouldn't be done. And this, guilt will get carried to the soul in the next birth. It will be a huge burden to carry. Please don't even think about it. I mean, nobody should. Nobody should think of, committing a suicide. Not at all. Because it's a crime. It's a crime against nature. Like Rahul was saying, it's a whole nature around me. If I'm going to kill a calf, if I'm going to kill a crow, if I'm going to kill an animal, that creates a guilt in me, leave alone the papa. It first creates a guilt in me. But if I'm going to kill millions of these creatures, which are dependent only on me, so what is the amount of guilt that I'm going to carry? That's the biggest crime. No, it's definitely a karma. It is definitely a lot of negative karma that I'll have to carry further.
Sure. And I'll just say something here, which Professor hinted, that when you have been given the human body, in our scriptures, we talk about 8.4 million types of bodies. Padma Puran talks about it very clearly. In fact, it tells you what are the different species, how many fishes, how many plants. And in that it says 0.4 million are manava, that means human-like, which includes obviously Homo sapiens, but it also includes all other kind of species which are manava, human-like. Okay, why I'm mentioning this? Because you see, if you are only conducting yourself at the level of seed, which professor was mentioning, and what is seed? Seed is sleeping, eating, entertaining, defending. Animals are also doing the same. Animals are sleeping, animals are eating, animals are entertaining themselves, which includes mating, by the way, and defending themselves. So if your whole purpose of human endeavor is I sleep on a softer bed, I eat in a Michelin star restaurant, I entertain myself with sophisticated music, I defend myself with sophisticated instruments such as derivatives and insurance policies. What makes you different from an animal? You have not yet started living your life. You are still as good as an animal walking on 2 feet. So the purpose for which you have been given human life is Athato Brahma Jigyaso. Now you think what is your purpose, and your purpose is to think about Brahman. And as professor was saying, your purpose is to escape this cycle of birth and death, because only in the human format, only in the human form you can get out of it. You cannot escape this cycle in the body of a cow or in the body of a plant. You can only do so in a human. This is the platform, this is the adhisthanam from which you can either come back into the samsara or you can escape this. So utilize it for the purpose it was given to you. And the purpose definitely, most definitely, is not to destroy this body which was endowed upon you. I hope that somewhat answers that question, Vaishnavi. Okay, thank you, Vaishnavi. Yeah, we have an affirmation from her.
Yeah, any other? I think Dhruvi probably. Shall we close the session then, Rahul, Galina?
We are happy to take questions. I mean, totally.
Okay.
I mean,
Do you have any other
I
questions?
just wanted to add one thing. It's not a question. So nice to see you, Rahul, and Giliana. I think I heard about you from Rahul, but I think I am seeing both of you first time, and I'm sure Rahul is very well equipped with most of the questions, because he actively involves in. I mean, before writing his book, actively involves in debates, and so I was also participate some of the debates. So I think this book is also some part would have influenced, if I'm not wrong, Rahul.
So, Prof. Binu, in fact, the acknowledgement, I don't know why Rupa puts acknowledgement at the back of it. I think acknowledgement should be in the front, but nevertheless, that group that you're talking about, it's actually acknowledged here. So we have acknowledged that group, and specifically some people like Dr. Srinidhi, who happens to be a triple doctor, right? He's a doctor, MBBS doctor, PhD from IIM Bangalore, similar to you, and has a PhD in Sanskrit. Then Adip, who is so great at pulling out scriptural references. So some of that has been acknowledged here, and obviously some of those discussions have made their way into the book. So Prof. Binu, you should definitely pick up a copy, and you will see that some of those discussions are in the book.
Yes.
So for benefit of those who are wondering what we're talking about, so we had created this group. It was Prof. Binu and I both are IIM Bangalore alumnus. So we created this book, this group, IMB, Religion, Philosophy, Science. So we had heated debates on a lot of topics there. And debate is a very good thing. Oftentimes we take it in a negative light. But if you look at our Indian knowledge system, Shastrarth, the meaning of Shastras, the meaning of scriptures, that's where the beginning starts, you know, and it's a very uniquely Indian thing, because in a lot of other places, for even voicing something against so-called holy scriptures, you will be charged with blasphemy. You will get your head chopped, you will be hanged, you will be crucified. So we are lucky to be born in a system which allows us to disagree. And that's why so many darshanas, that's why Shat Darshan, to look at this philosophy. You're free to choose whichever you want to. So thank you, Prof. Binu, for bringing those memories of those groups.
I would just like to add something.
Yes, Dr. Pawan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you so much.
Wonderful to see both of you, and Rahulji and Galina. You see, Rahul said in the beginning that he was born in Ayodhya. He belongs to Lucknow, went to study to Singapore, came back to India, again went there. Fine. And Galina had written me one mail just a few days back. I'm sorry I could not reply you, Galina. I wanted to reply. But what I want to say, Rahul is an example of swimming in the direction of the current. And Galina is an example of swimming in the opposite direction of the current. But you see, the meeting of Rahul and Galina and creating a wonderful book like An Atheist Gets the Gita, basically currents flowing in both the directions are now meeting and creating something unique. And I must congratulate that, you see, such two young minds, they are delving deeper into basic inquiry which everyone should make. And I think certainly that there's difference between intelligence and intellect. I sometimes love to say that a PhD degree is perhaps a sure sign that you are intellect, you have intellect, you are intellectual. But it does not anything tells that whether you are intelligent or not. Because in Vedanta, basically, there is great difference between intellect and intelligent. One under-educated person may be intelligent. Under-educated person will never be intellectual. Properly educated person would be intellectual, but he or she would be intelligent, not sure, because intelligence has to do with buddhi, as Rahulji was also explaining, mana buddhi, and body, mind, intelligence, and soul. Mana, sharir, mana, buddhi, atma. So I'll just add one thing, that more subtler the entity is, more powerful it is.
Yes.
I was expected to be a bulky boy by my grandmother, because they used to think that more bulky you are, more fat you are, more healthy you are. And I was a very thin boy in my childhood. So my grandmother used to be very unhappy with me, and my mother also. Your child is very thin. Perhaps these innocent grandmothers did not know that more subtler the entity is, more powerful it is. So body is the grossest. Subtler than body is mind. Subtler than mind is intelligence, not intellect, intelligence. And subtler than intelligence is soul. And more we inquire into subtler aspect, more we are inquiring about the root power which governs the subsequent grosser aspects. And that's why I'm so happy just watching that such young shoulders like Rahulji and Galinaji. That's what I can say. I'm elder to you in age. I can only say God shower his choicest blessings upon both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Shall we move to conclusion, if that's okay?
Sure, Dhruvi. Yeah.
So beautifully stated as the opening, the story of your journey and helping us understand how Bhagavad Gita is truly an instruction manual to life through various equations and discussions. Thank you, sir, ma'am, for such thought-provoking insights, and also for patiently addressing this eager audience and making this such a lively session for us. It was great having you, and we hope you have a really good day ahead. Thank you so much.
Dhanyawad.
Thank you. Dhanyawad. Dhanyawad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, one last word. When you started off, we had a very nice Indian spread. You know, it felt like having a nice banana leaf lunch with a lot of delicacies. There were so many delicacies that initially I got a little, didn't know what to eat, how to eat, how well I could digest that. But I'm happy towards the end, you brought in a very good payasam. So I think it ended well. And thank you so much for your good efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.